La!
Ta-da!
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 Mhm.
Welcome to Embracing the Wild. I'm Abby Pagood.
And this is Audra Watley.
Oh, wrong way. Wait,
Ta-da!
wrong way. Not that any of that makes any sense. Okay. Anyway, is it story time? Let's do some story time first to trigger us
Story
off.
time. Yes.
Yay! Which actually
And I
is really
will.
not. I just want to watch your face watching this video. Because it's awesome.
It's so tiny.
Money that's supplied, all right? You cannot use no super glue, no tape, no Play-Doh, no putty, nothing sticky, no sticks. And you gotta use the cup. Like I said, you cannot super glue the cup like that or like tape it like that. And you cannot, you cannot do none of that. And this can't break. You can't.
What's she doing? I love the dad's face. Look at his face. He's like, what the hell?
He's like, she already has a master plan. I can tell we've done this before.
And he's like, wait, what?
I knew there was going to be water involved.
Hold this down and put the batteries all over.
Wait, why do you want me to do it? What?
Because I need adult supervision. I don't want to get hurt.
What, you want to try to guilt trip me like that? Oh, wait, what do I do?
Hold this down and touch the battery all over.
You see that? Wait, is this safe?
Sure.
Sure. What do you mean? Just keep touching it?
Yeah.
What is it?
Now move.
He's like looking at her like, what?
And there's my money, bitch.
Lift up this top using this cup, then I will let you have the money that's supplied, all right?
Is that not the cutest?
That's pretty funny.
I like it made me really happy.
I still want to know what she used because I couldn't see it. Like it just looked like
I think
Weird
it was
orange
one
something.
of those. I feel like it was one of those Brillo pads. I feel like it was one of those Brillo pads that are the wool, like metal, whatever. And so that when the electrical charge hit it, that heated it up. And that's what I think it was a Brillo pad.
okay. Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah. But I just
Okay.
I love the interaction of the challenges because Rudy will do that with the kids.
Yeah.
And it's cute. Like, I mean, ever since the kids were little, if we went out to eat, it was always about, hey,
Let's build something.
here's the bill. What is the percentage that we live the tip? Like, they would say, okay, what is, 20% of this tip? And then does the waiter deserve the entire
the
amount?
entire 20%.
Yeah, exactly. And so he would teach them at a very early age some of those sequences. But I really love, apparently this guy challenges his daughter all the time with all these different type of science tricks, of course, with money incentives. And she wins a lot.
Yeah. She's like, I got this. Filling up my college fund.
Right? Or it's like, okay, next, like where is this gonna go? But anyway, another one that I thought was really cute, we have to share is this one.
Read it. I can't decide if he reminds me of a hobbit or
He totally legit reminds me of a hobbit. Like all I could think at the very first time was that's a hobbit. But what I liked about it is what it said. It says, whenever you feel ugly, remember that your face is a combination of hundreds of generations of people who fell in love.
Aw. That's very sweet. That is very sweet.
I thought that was really cute because you really think about how much image goes into a lot of our mentality. And the reason why it kind of like hit home was, this week, Kai was, self-hating himself with his hair this week because his hair was just, that kid, he's had monk head from the beginning. Like you couldn't get a haircut on that kid that made any sense. I mean, it didn't matter what cut it was. He always ended up looking like a monk at the end of the day. And there's only 2 cuts that has successfully worked on his head. And we've, the last couple years, he's kind of been strutting like a longer do with a shaved. He has to go higher up because he has colics that will just make it really hard for him to style or even have it make any sense. So we always have to go really up high in the back and even up high on the sides in order for this to do anything that you want it to do. And then now recently, his dad has gotten him on this, like, I want more versatile, like, styles with our haircuts or something. And so therefore he got him a haircut and it worked and it was great, but it only lasted 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it's like,
That's
like
crazy fast.
Well, no offense, when your kids are healthy and they're eating the right foods and they're not eating a lot of toxic chemical crap, their hair grows. I mean, they just grow faster. Their nails are in great condition. It just is a thing. And so a haircut is not necessarily a long lasting. It's like, yeah, every 2 weeks. Do I really want to spend, $40, $50 on a haircut every 2 weeks? No, I do not. So, I remember when kids' haircuts used to be like $14.
Yeah.
And then like if you went to the specialty fancy ones where they had like, the rocket ship chair, and then they had that they always got a balloon when they left. And then they had all these slew of toys that just enticed the kids, but drove them nuts. And like that environment, okay, they were $20, $25. But now it's like kids and men's haircuts are 10 times more. And it's like, I need to find something that is more long-lasting, substantial, and all of it. What are you doing? You're dancing.
I know. Like I said, my computer is overheating, and so I was trying to rearrange the book underneath it to see
if that could help. Give it some air. You're like, yay, me! I did it.
I hope. We'll see. Maybe it'll stop being like here shortly.
No, it might. We don't know. Who knows? What are some of your image issues that you had when you were a kid?
I don't necessarily remember image issues as a kid, but I do remember being compared to my best friend, who is like a little sister to me. And she was a year younger, and she was actually hyperthyroid when we were like young because of toxic exposure, or I don't even know what. So she was really, really thin. And so I always like thought of myself as being thick, like really thick. And so I look back at my high school pictures and I'm like, dang, I wish I had that body again because it was amazing. But I always thought of myself as fat.
What do you think were some of the contributing factors of that? Because I think that happens to a lot of us females.
Yeah.
Of being raised thinking that we are at an unhealthy weight, not appreciating our body or what it's doing. And then it's like we do have a tendency to look back. I mean, I look back at some of my senior photos and I'm like, oh my God, my ass pants. I love those pants. Like, and I remember how they fit and how they grooved. But I hated my body then. Yeah. And it makes me wonder if we were children and actually got to appreciate our body, would our bodies be in different shape today? Right? Like here it was like we spent years hating on ourselves for either how we looked or comparing ourselves to other people instead of embodying and embracing and empowering ourselves with those looks. I wonder how much different our body would have responded in the aging process had we actually given it love and light.
I totally agree with that. And what I will say is that I had a lot of external influences that basically told me that I was fat. Everything from my mom wanted to cover me up because, she didn't want the boys seeing my curves, which I was a cheerleader in my little short skirt. Yeah, right.
Eyes and teeth, sugar. Eyes and teeth.
Yeah, I know.
If you can name that movie, we will send you a present.
Yeah.
Someone put that in the comments.
And between that and my dad always making fun of my big butts, but I at the time it's like I was a track. I ran track. I played soccer. I ran a lot. And then when it came to the standardized charts of measuring girls' bodies, I always fell on the too heavy, and so I was considered overweight or obese, even though I didn't have any extra fat on me. It's just because I was thick for my height.
Hmm.
I was muscular. And so
Right.
I hate those standardized charts.
Me too. They're so full of shit.
I
So
was gonna
full of
say that
shit.
those are the kinds of things that, like I said, it wasn't. I didn't feel bad about my body, but I just had no awareness of like what it was actually like. Um, and I think I probably had more of a messed up perception because as a teenager I wanted boys to like me, but the ones that I liked didn't. And there was a lot of others that overly expressed their sexual attraction to my physical body, which I couldn't stand. So it's that really kind of grungy, like lusty that you get from like guys that are catcalling.
Right. Yeah.
Versus a healthy perspective of a body.
I remember in college having a couple of times I would like go to a DMV and there would be like somebody making a cat call or some kind of, what, I guess could have been their way of saying that's a compliment or whatever. And I would get to the point where I would just give them ugly looks or I would just turn and be like, fuck off, like just immediately because there was this like skeevy grossness to it just made you feel like candy, like or something like of some kind of a toy or a plaything or that kind of it's just very derogatory. And women have been dealing with that for generations upon generations. I mean, it goes even into the woman movement and empowerment and trying to, be able to own property, accept like and own property, be able to vote, do all that. And it's like I'm all for woman power. I've never considered myself a feminist. I don't consider myself a like, oh, power to the people, like yay women or whatever, but I am very like hell freaking yeah, like go girl. Like so I will be I don't even know if there I feel like there should be a new name for feministic traits without being an extreme feminist. I don't know, and I don't necessarily know like what's happened to the term feminist because I don't feel like there's a lot. I don't feel like feminist is a big conversation anymore or as much pronounced.
When I hear it, it's anti-male.
Right.
Which I don't think
it became aggressive against males or toxic. It took a turn into male toxicity. And I'm like, no, not masculinity can be wounded masculine, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all men are toxic and masculinity is toxic. Right. And there's a lot of confusion around femininity and masculinity and being able to embody them in healthy forms versus the wounded that gets expressed in society.
Yeah, I was listening to something recently and I was really fascinated because it was talking about, and it's like a lot of us that are in the healing community and we're talking about healing the feminine and that sort of thing. It's like that is also for men, but as women, it's like we're not going to get men to step up the way that we want them to step up as our protectors and as that masculine force until we feel the feminine. So right. It's kind of like once the feminine is more healed, then the masculine can actually step into the place that it's always needed to be before it became toxic because men were controlled too.
And so much so. I mean, like you look back at history and even watching movies of different time periods, you see so many different forms of how people used to be. Like, and I think there is a very big oversight, or like I guess I should say overlook, into how history has progressed over time and how humans have evolved over time based off of circumstances changing within the progressionary changes within society. And like, you know, like there's so much right now of the world looking back at history and like shitting on it, pissing on it, and really not honoring the people or the process of how we came to be today. Like instead it's like, oh my gosh, that person was terrible, and then you write them off entirely without evaluating the fact of, okay, you know what, they may have owned people and not been paying them, but then transitioned into paying them, and then transitioned into, you know, fighting for them and considering, like there's not enough. It's almost like you scold the person for the injustice to which they didn't know, or that time period didn't know was a bad thing. Like that is the lessons in education that I feel like schools are not teaching enough of, is how, like, okay, this does not mean it's acceptable. This is the objectives that that generation faced, and this is the way those generations could try and make changes of value for the future in the way that they could at that time. Because if you think about people that really jump up and just say, this is what we're doing, and da 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 da, they end up being the crazy person, or they're shunned off to the side, or nobody fucking follows them.
Yeah.
So like,
It's
yeah,
like what occurs to me is kind of like, you know, criticizing, yelling at, and being offended by people who did whatever they did 100 years ago would be like 100 years from now, them yelling and cussing at us because we use plastic cups and, you know, drive vehicles that use gasoline. I mean, like that's the
or, oh my gosh, my
correlation.
shoulder's being revealed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know.
Oh, how scandalous.
Scandalous. Although, you know, that's not really scandalous, and that probably won't be scandalous in the future. But, you know, 100 years ago, that would have been, oh, yeah, you would have been
Oh,
in the
it's
whole
definitely not scandalous now, not with OnlyFans making record breaking.
Yeah, 200 years ago, though, man, you would have been in the cat house.
Oh, I would have had like the A for adultery. What was that fucking movie? Damn it. Demi Moore in her remake. Letter. Yeah.
Was it Scarlet Letter?
I went straight into Demi Moore and her remake.
And I'm like going, I had the red A. We got that.
Well, they had to take somebody like that was hot to like put them into that sequence. So, you know, it's fine. So speaking of, you know, masculine and feminine energy and today versus back in the past. And I say this slowly because I'm trying to like not vomit with my taste buds. Because my daughter sent me a New Age commercial.
Uh-oh.
And yes, you have to see this.
A love so fine, my Valentine.
I beg.
That's a commercial. Did you see what I saw?
Yeah.
Do you need me to rewind it?
No, I don't. I'm like, why? I mean, wow.
Wow. Is that not?
It's not, that's for sure. Not appropriate, not there's not anything about that I go, yeah, that makes me want to buy that product.
You don't want little baby heart. You don't want little baby heart babies?
No,
No? It
no.
doesn't make you happy?
It disturbs me enough that when you put your iPhone too close to somebody else's iPhone, that they go and make love.
Like, our phones are doing it.
They're doing it. Yeah, my phone just did it with somebody else's phone because it got too close. I mean, it's disturbing.
It is super massively disturbing. And what I don't understand is why a lot of these things are going around everywhere. And it's like, I just don't understand it. Like, why does everything have to be so out in the open and just like, I just don't get it. I
Well, and
don't understand.
I mean,
I have
we've gotten to a place in our culture to where sex is not, it's not a sacred act by any means anymore. I
Mhm.
mean, not that it hasn't been for a long time, but it's kind of like I feel like it needs to go back to, okay, yes, we can do that for pleasure. I'm not a prude, but at the same time, it's kind of like just for the sake of doing it with whoever. It's like this is the reason that we have, STDs everywhere.
And we don't necessarily have commercials promoting, we used to have the abstinent groups. We had the, the condom groups, like the contraceptives and all of those different things. You would have people come into classes, you'd have different teachings of it. And the sad thing is like the younger generations today are becoming more and more, shall we say, giving with their bodies at a very early age. Like,
And without any
knowledge or understanding of what that is or what it's doing to them.
well, and I mean, and so much else with it, like without any discretion, without any how it affects your psyche, and all of it. I mean, because it's like, this too, that it impacts, especially women. It impacts your brains in a way that your body is actually looking for connection. And when you're not getting anything more than physical connection, it creates all of these psychological traumas down the road that you have to sort out, because not only did you give a piece of yourself, you gave your body too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But and it's not even that people are even understanding like what the body's actually going through in that process, right? Because anything physical, there is, it's like, when you're in under stressful times, when you're under different types of things, like your body, you end up doing things that you don't even remember because your body was able to compartmentalize and get you through it. And then when you turn around and look back, you almost are in shock of how the hell did I fucking get through that? I don't even know where I was able to get any of the energy, be able to provide any of that mindfulness, but somehow I did it. I survived. That's fantastic. But it is like there's that disconnect between, the mind and the body, that it didn't really process what was actually really happening. And in times like this, it's like, we talk about, the skull not fully solidifying until 23, and then logic, the brain not solidifying and growth in logic until like 26, 27 years of age. And then I kind of was, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day being mindful of that knowledge and thinking back to, well, no wonder there were all kinds of wars and chaos and people chopping off other people's heads back in, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, because half of those little piss ants were only 10, 14, 17 years old when they're fucking like, that person insulted me, off with their heads, go take out their country. Like it was like mood swing central. There wasn't that logical thought process. There wasn't that evaluation. There wasn't the understanding. It was just like, like there's all these, teeny boppers ruling these massive countries. And then it was like wars and takeover and, honey fests. I don't even know what to
that's
call
one
that.
way to put it. That is one way to put it. Well, and no consequences and no consequences, because a lot of times they weren't even there. They just sent a whole bunch of people to die for them
Right.
and take over whatever, or to end someone's life. And I mean, in some ways, it's no different than a video game
Right.
in a weird sort of way. But at the same time, it's kind of like allowing those. Yeah, when you look back at history, there are so many things that understanding it from all of the knowledge that we have now, as far as like, how the brain develops, how the body develops, how everything develops. And then you've got these kids that are running the world,
Essentially, yes.
essentially. And
Mhm.
and they were being controlled by older
Master
religious
manipulators and narcissists.
master manipulators that actually were the ones that created the controls.
Yeah. And they chose what these children were educated on.
Mm-hmm.
They were only allowed to read what they were allowed to be fed, so they could get completely sucked into a certain belief system and mentality, not even knowing about half of the other knowledge out there, or being able to decipher between the two.
Well, and they didn't have a choice. It was kind of like, this is what our country is. Our country is a Catholic country. You have to fall into those premises to
Right.
be king, because the religious organization was who determined or approved them stepping onto the throne.
Speaking of St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
so we have St. Patrick's Day upon us, and I actually had somebody say something to me that they were available. They were available for an appointment on St. Patrick's Day because they, like, oh, unless you are like, I'm like, no, like I'm not really in favor of celebrating mass conquering and killing off of thousands of druids. No, I think I'm good. And it was really interesting because that person actually also knew some of the history. I don't know if it was from me teaching them about some of that history, but it was like, it's like, no, I'm good. Like Saint Patrick, from what I have understood or read back on of the history of Saint Patrick, was how there was a big time of the religious wars, especially amongst Druids, Catholicism, Christianity, like all of those different dynamics were happening at that time. And from what I have read on St. Patrick himself, was that he was a child in a village to where Druids had come into his village, and like things ensued. And so which he was young and his parents were gone, and this Druid family took him in. And the description that I said was like, took him in as one of his own, but made him more of a slave to like assist and serve and chore and all of those different types of things. Well, in that time period grew so much animosity against the Druid faith, culture, people, because in his head, he was a child. My parents aren't here. Now I'm stuck living with these people without choice. And then basically, then became very prominent in Catholicism, like ran away, then became very prominent within the Catholic Church, and then turned the people into attacking and wiping out Druids and their belief system, and like gone.
Wow.
And then he became a saint and a person of honor for wiping out the Druids.
Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking it up and being like, wow, that's ridiculous.
I'm trying to remember where I read this story, because I get into some of these weird books on folklore and the legendary stories that, and it some of the Celtic, some of those types of books. But it was really fascinating because I mean, even looking up just the time period and what was going on, and there was a lot of infighting. There was a lot of the battling of their belief systems. And the thing that made me so frustrated, and I feel this way about all of, cultures, religious beliefs, everything. It's no different than when you've had people that do a mission trip over to the islands, either Hawaiian Islands, Samoan Islands, etc. They, they do these trips and with the intent of good and spreading God's word, but instead come in and start telling them what they're doing incorrectly versus embodying what is already set in place. And like you will see that a lot with Hawaiian culture. They refer to everything as mana, and they have, they have their gods of the god of water, the god of land, that everything has a separate thing. But then you have different cultures come in and then tell them that they are incorrect. And it was like that, not just because they have a different language for it does not mean, who is to determine that was wrong or right? That's what worked for them, and that's what they created with the access that they had and what they embodied within them, how God spoke through to them. And so, and I'm very much on I don't really give a shit what your belief system is or how you do, as long as you're not infringing on other people's belief system or trying to dictate right and wrong. I like it. Don't like you do and believe whatever you believe, but at the same time, it's about evolving as a human. It's about standing in our purpose. It's about evolution of self and self-discovery and ridding ourselves of the ailment issues that keep us from growing or keep us from understanding, which as a parent is really fucking hard to do, because so much when our children challenge us, it really hits our ego because of not only what we have known parenting to be, but also because kids will challenge that kind of superior, that hierarchy, superior, inferior mindset of I'm parent, your child, I know more, you're younger. And instead of identifying the fact that all of us are beams of light with wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and a lot of times our children are those open portal vessels without some of the blocking agents to which we've created as we got older. And so sometimes I really kind of remind myself to freeze and listen to what was being said, to try and evaluate where it was coming from, so that I can at least, one, allow my child to feel as though they're heard, so that they're not suppressing their voice or not suppressing emotions, or changing that dynamic, like, changing their perception about something that could really profoundly affect them in the future in their functionality, but predominantly really focusing on what was it that they said that actually had truth and value, and then how can we still take that, but at the same time put a more functioning communication system into that, so that it's not so nasty.
Yeah.
Because let's say bitches get real.
Yeah. So I feel like we're struggling for words today, but that's okay. I'm going to back way up. So before Christianity, right? So before there were all of the religious wars, pretty much indigenous populations all over the world believed that God spoke to them, or their ancestors, or however you want to put it, through nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like they recognized, fire, earth, water, air, as different aspects of balance, and how that played into health itself. And I say that because Chinese medicine is that way. Ayurvedic medicine, which is the more holistic, indigenous medicine to India, and all of the traditional Native American and other medicines, it's like they all had nature at the base core of them. And when Christianity, when they started fighting over, who was right and who was wrong, and killing everybody off, and then sending missionaries out into the world to conquer it and make it like them, they did everything that they could to suppress and do away with those original beliefs. And so whether it was, St. Patrick because of his anger of his own childhood experiences with the Irish, or whoever, I mean, even when I say we because, it's the Western Europeans that came and conquered the United States. And that's probably one of the more recent, I'm going to say, injustices. It is the way that the Native Americans, and even still the way that indigenous populations have been treated, that their beliefs are not respected. But I would say, from my perspective, that those beliefs are probably truer and closer to balance than, a lot of the things that I heard in the church growing up. So
I like that.
I know.
I have nothing.
I was like, you went somewhere with the kids, and I was kind of like, okay, yeah, kids and educating kids, and yeah, I think today is just kind of like, I think is today or tomorrow the height of Mercury in retrograde. So communication just seems a little.
Today.
Is it today?
Today is, I believe is today the 14th or the 15th?
Today is the 14th.
Oh, it might be tomorrow.
Yeah.
I looked it up yesterday. I did not take a screenshot, which I normally do, and I did not. But I do believe that, like, heightened day for Mercury in retrograde, and then it's followed by maybe 2 or 3 like medium, like tiny days, and then we phase into like a good week span of like, okay, easement, like an easy aggressive, and then we jump right back into a like medium, and then I think we only have one other aggressive day. I think there
Okay.
weren't many. There weren't many like high aggressive days, but
Well, I think
yeah.
I think like this is the height of it, and then in the next few days it starts to go direct, but we're just not there yet. So anyway, if this podcast makes it out there, it'll be a miracle.
Legit, because we are actually notorious for having recorded during retrograde 2 or 3 times just to get one effective delivery, and those didn't really get heard like nearly at all. So who the fuck knows? I have no idea. Like, it's gonna be what it is, and we just are gonna have to deal with it. And whoever gets to hear it, yay. But everybody is talking about the blood moon. Would you like to educate everyone on the blood moon, since you had a lovely post about it earlier today, if people did not see it?
It wasn't just on the blood moon, but it was the combination of Mercury in retrograde, a full moon, the full moon eclipse, like all of it together just makes for really intense energy. And Mercury's about communication. So it's like kind of taking the time to look within and being like, how do you communicate? How do you, it's like, what are your styles of communication? Are they effective? And, it's like when you get to that place of frustration with somebody, is it really yours? Is it, that's how you pick up the world? Or is it the fact that you're not really communicating what you thought you were as clearly as you thought you were? There's so many things around that we could go into. But really it's just those lunar eclipses like we just had. It's like, it just amplifies emotions. And so it's like when you bring in those hidden patterns up to the surface and then you heighten it and then the communication's off, it's like I said, it's a really great opportunity to look within and just get really clear on what it is that you want to say.
Well, and it's also like, I mean, you and I were talking yesterday, and you and I were talking yesterday because I had some emotions that came up, and some of them were being projected at me, but at the same time, it was still bringing up some of those, internal issues of, not necessarily always being heard as a child, or, like not being trusted within certain things, or, like there were so many different emotions that came into me. And the funny thing is that I was really relatively calm. I wasn't really absorbing much for that, like for the excess emotions at all. And what ended up happening is I ended up having, like there was just a little bit of miscommunication amongst our family members, but it pushed me into this absolute like defense mechanism of, oh, hell freaking no, we're not dealing with this. Like I've already identified this is no longer invited. Like here is the halt. But then there was still anger and frustration within it to the point where I just needed to go for a walk. And as soon as taking just that 5-10 minutes, it was almost like just the conversation, it just fully just, nope, it was out. It was gone. By the time I had gotten home, I didn't know what I was going to walk home into, seeing like that I wasn't there to deal with the core part of the emotions. I just checked out and whatnot. And my husband was incredible and was just like, oh, I just said, sorry, I had to go for a walk. He's like, you have nothing to apologize for. Like that's it. Like, that's fine. Whatever. And then there were words that I was able to have with my son later into communicating how, hey, I identify that there's some of these different behaviors that we have done for years, but they're not really helping us communicate. And we really need to start focusing on ridding ourselves of some of those traits. And so already, even that night, he started to say something about his sister. And I said, we could go that direction, but I think we might want to rephrase that so that it can be a little bit more uplifting. And so as soon as we did that, I mean, like within an hour, there was another subject that came back and then he said something. He's like, oh, wait, no. And then he went straight into rephrasing. And so like, which I loved because right away it was like being able to give the time got us to be able to refocus. And then sure as shit, this morning, my husband ends up calling me overly so and like, oh my gosh, is everything okay? And I'm like, I just got up and was using my face one on my face. Like, I'm like really good right now. Like, I was like, I'm doing my face care routine while I'm watching some YouTube and like getting my brain organized for the day. And I'm about to do this like somatic breath work for the day. Like things are great. Like what are you picking up? And he just is like, I didn't want to overthink. I just want to double check. It's like, no, things are fantastic here. I was like, oh, sweetie, I don't think you're aware. We're in retrograde. I mentioned it before, but number 2, we've also got the blood moon going on. And, like, and then I kind of just briefed it. And he's like, okay, so I don't need to be overthinking. I was like, no, if anything, just check yourself out. Like it's not yours. Like,
Yeah.
It's not yours. It's not mine. It's not any of us. We're fine. The collective sucks balls. Like,
yeah. Pause, get grounded, breathe, drink some water, and reflect. Is this mine? I don't have any reason for this to be mine. Okay, not yours.
not yours.
That's it.
It's fine.
That simple. Not
All
yours.
right. Speaking of balls, do you want to see one last video?
Sure.
Okay, to set this up, it's connected to the last one, except the last video was obviously new age commercials. This is an old age commercial that I don't think we would see it anymore in today's television viewership, although I think it really might help the next generation. And welcoming your thoughts.
You better work, bitch.
Yeah. Wow. That takes me back to like Pretty Woman.
Takes me back. What part? How does it you pretty woman. Oh, when she pulls out the different ones, she's like, which one do you want? Do you want like chocolate? Do you want like, do you want rib size? Do you want?
Yeah, exactly. I'm a safety girl. I have choices.
In her boot.
In her boots. Yeah.
In her boot.
Yeah.
What's that a boot?
Wow. Yeah, I always wonder, I'm like, will we ever in relationships get past it being about sex?
I don't know. I think that's kind of what's happening right now. I think
But
that the
getting it
new
past
evolved,
it, or
I feel like the new evolved human is starting to understand deeper connectivity on an energetic level that surpasses physical, I don't know, magnitude. I don't know what to fucking call that. But I really,
it's like, don't get me wrong. It's like there's pleasure there, but it's kind of like, there's so much focus on, I mean, it's like you can't even say intimacy without it being heard as sex. And they are
correct.
so far not the same thing. I mean,
Never
it's
have
like
been.
they never have been. And
Yeah.
so I don't even know anymore. It's one of the reasons I'm like, I just can't.
I feel like that there are, like, I want to say that I don't know what percentage of the population, but I do know that, there didn't used to be as much mindfulness within energetic awareness, insight, intuition, those types of things. I think that has expanded significantly over, especially the last 5 years, like no fucking, like since 2018, like 2011, 2018, and even more like in the last 2 years have really created like really big leaps and bounds. Now, in regards to that, I think that more of the understanding of that connection, I think it's a smaller percentage of that group that is understanding that deeper connection of intimacy that's not connected and associated with sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
However, I feel like the newer generations, like the younger generations, the ones that are really trying to step into acceptance and love and being, they're getting stuck in this almost going backwards type of thing. Like sometimes I see today's world almost looking like way back in the Romans when it was like pillage and like sex parties and drunkenness and like all this chaos. And I feel like we're almost repeating that time period right now. But like in that time period, it led to different ramifications that had to be confronted that then produced more order and structure and rationality. So I feel like right now we're in the midst of people going through those experiences to come out with a better understanding, and that will lead to a broader term of it. But I also have no idea because my husband's a sex monkey. So I don't know what else to tell you. So,
Yeah.
but I will tell you that the difference between, like, I've been with my husband for 20 years, it'll be 21 years this April. And in that time period, we have so much more in-depth connectivity in the last year, if not 2 years more so than we've ever had, not just on a physical level, but the intimacy, the connection, and our souls, like just bonding. We've always been in this heightened, intense soul connection from the beginning, but it has evolved even more so to energetic, to the point where I end up doing energy work with the two of our energies combined together. Like there have been times where I've ended up being called to heal a portion of the world on the other side of the globe And I had no idea why, but I needed his energy to embody and embrace and have that expand out. And I was like, holy shit, okay, now I'm starting to understand some of that connection, that shared light can do, especially when it comes to healing different parts of the world. So, and even though he he could, unbeknownst to him, not know what the hell is happening, but he is a willing participant. There's not like, I'm not stealing his energy. I'm not piggybacking and borrowing it and then like putting it back. I'm literally like, hey, by the way, I'm just gonna like, we're gonna immerse. I'm gonna like do some things, and he's just like, whatever. And then if anything, he's like mind blown because it's given him some of those out of body experiences to where he's actually traveling in different dimensions, and to the point where he's actually like, oh my gosh, we were literally floating and we were not here in this room. We were like in the cosmos. Yeah, we totally were, babe. Absolutely. So glad you picked up on it. Because I actually was like growing and sprouting trees like over here, like doing like, like I don't even have words to describe it, but it's interesting because the more that people are getting upgraded, especially even with, like, okay, it's retrograde, whatever. And okay, here's this blood moon, but like they come with such potent energy to change and evolve and expand. And with each one, he's picking up on them more significantly. He's even applying some of what he can understand and other things he may not be able to filter through just yet, but he's at least becoming into heightened awareness to the point where even I have to sometimes take a step back and just trust what it is the fuck that he's saying, because I don't know. I'm like, that actually was not my radar and not my category of expertise. I'm just gonna let you run with that one. And I have to stand into my feminine and just trust and be like, okay, that's what we're doing now. Holy crap. And then I get a little jealous. Wait a second, that's my role. I'm supposed to be the one that knows all these things. But then I put my ego down and I say, shh, like, calm down.
It's all good.
It's all good. It's all about
good.
evolution. It's all good. So anyway, embrace that fucking experience.